All right, welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a little bit since I've done anything. I know I put out a few things that Dan did, but for this particular video, I honestly have no idea what I'm going to title it. I title and do all that kind of stuff afterwards, so we'll see. But this, I kind of wanted to talk about where I've been, what I've been up to, and more of a catch-up of just different news that I probably will make longer form content about as well, especially once maybe for some of these when we know a little bit more information. But just sort of a quick going over of various things that have come up over the last few weeks. All right, so like I said, I put out some of Dan's stuff lately, but I've been missing for, I don't know, probably 2 to 3 weeks now. And honestly, nothing too crazy. Summer work is a little bit busier in general. I don't tend to work like overall as much as during the year, but when it's summer, it's a little bit earlier in the day, more regimented. There's less time in between. It just kind of fills out my time more, and just trying to do some other stuff as well around. So, busy working around the house and just some other things, and just took a little bit of time away from it. Not that I didn't want to, but I do find for certain things I need to actually like sit down to do it. And I got sidetracked with a variety of things as well. I didn't actually even get nearly as much assembly and painting done as I planned. It's actually kind of hard to tell, but over there's about 4 boxes of Conquest stuff that I picked up that um today's actually decent enough. I'm looking for a nice enough day to be able to sit and open some windows and all for when I use plastic glue, because it does smell a little bit. So I said nothing too crazy, just been I'll explain in a moment some of the stuff I've been doing. But just busy working on a variety of other things, and haven't had a chance to sit down to actually record at a time that I like to. Especially with work now, it's early rather than like mixed, so I can't necessarily record late because I need to try and sleep, or a variety of other things. And there's other stuff I won't get into, but nothing too crazy. So let's talk about some news and sort of things that have been going on. One of the biggest things that's actually been taking up quite a bit of my time is, so I do play video games. I get in spits and spurts of more of when I do it. So I'll do a variety of other stuff. I won't touch any games for a super long time. I haven't touched any of the new stuff that's is going to be coming out or has come out, kind of stuff like that. But what I've been playing a whole bunch of is Blueprints. So I pulled it up off of, if you're watching the Steam page about it, just to discuss it very briefly. It's essentially a puzzle game. At the end of the day, if you've ever played like Betrayal at House on the Hill, it's that, but no one turns into a monster at any point. It is a roguelike, so you are going through, there is some permanent upgrades and all, but hey, when a run and the thing is done, you go back through, you do it over again. So that's essentially the feel of the game. For what you are told, there's a 45 room castle that you are inheriting the estate of. And your goal is to get in this 45 room, essentially mansion or castle, however, not really castle, I guess mansion is probably, or estate is the better term. You're trying to get to the 46th room. And if you get it, you get your inheritance. And the story only goes more from there, and everything goes more from there. It was developed, I think, over a course of about 8 years. And it is the type of game where, yeah, you need to take notes. You need to write things down. I take pictures and notes depending on the things that I'm doing, because there is some moon logic. So for anyone who's not aware, the idea of moon logic is, do you have to get into the creator's head to figure out the way in which something works? So some games are very good about, especially adventure games. This is a known concept in adventure games. So you might have this item to be used on this thing. And the question is, would you naturally think of it, or do you have to think of the weird and crazy way that the game designer has come up with it? The game is pretty good for moon logic. There is some tougher parts, and there are some parts where I'll be honest, I'm not going to spend 80 plus hours trying to figure something out. I will look things up if necessary. I try to look it up. IGN does a really good job of telling you a little bit of hints without spoiling it all. So every now and then, me and my wife actually play this together. So she sits there and helps me out with things, helps me out with puzzles, tells me different things to be able to do. Essentially, you're drafting rooms, filling in a house, and trying to do, I don't know, 40, 50 different things in there. And so, like I said, came out in April, off of PC. I think it was out before, but I think it might have been like a beta sort of thing. But honestly, the game is a lot of fun. I put tons of hours into that. So at times when I'm sitting down, I say, oh, I could record something. Didn't necessarily have an idea in mind exactly what I wanted to do, and this is something me and my wife are actually doing together, so we can actually spend time, sitting there together and trying to work something out rather than just, we don't watch a lot of the exact same television shows. We watch some of the same and certain things like that. Like we both like trash television to a certain extent, but some of the other stuff she watches, I don't watch, and I'm not great with TV anyway, or other activities like we'll play games and all, but this is something we've been enjoying doing. So partly been busy doing that. If you are into games, especially puzzle types, this is absolutely, to me, like a must play. It was actually on I think it was one of the free games of the month for PlayStation. That's how I grabbed it, because I'm playing on my PS5. I play it in the living room because the back of the house, it's just me. But I've put quite a few hours into this over the last few weeks. So partly to blame is definitely this. When we get into later summer and I have more time off, I get more of everything. That's usually the main time that I play video games and do other stuff as well. Because during the school year, I just end up getting busy. Where this sort of time I have that, I know Death Stranding 2 is coming out, so seeing what I can do with that, because sooner or later I gotta go walking simulator that game. The game's more than a walking simulator for who doesn't know. It's actually quite a bit more. I think it's a lot better than just that. But sure, if that's what you want to call that one. So I can't highly recommend this enough. Not sponsored anyway. No one gives me anything other than Parabellum sends me some models every now and then. All the ones back there I picked up myself, but they do send me some stuff. But other than that, I would, tout this one either way. All right, so that's one thing I've been doing. So video game wise, I know there's other ones that are out, like I want to play the new Doom. Obviously, at some point when I get to that, I said, I know Expedition 33, but I need like real free time. I'm going on a vacation midway through July, so probably after that, because then I'm not teaching the later part of summer because of that vacation. I might do some other work. I have some other things I'm looking at, because one of the other things that's been keeping us busy is fixing some stuff around the house, some stuff that we wanted to fix and stuff we didn't intend to fix. And unfortunately, I don't know if for anyone who does own a home, homes require money to be put into them. So I might try to find some other work to help out with some of those things, because that's just how life goes. But hey, life is rough for all of us. I completely understand that. This isn't me complaining about any of that, but hey, you take the good and you take the bad, obviously, with those sort of things. But that's the time when I also do make videos ahead of time and all that kind of stuff, because I actually have the time. All right, so other news, other big things. Like that's, I guess, technically news. We don't do a lot of video game stuff here. If I played more, I would do more, but I really don't. Another thing I wanted to talk about briefly, and we'll see exactly how briefly we discuss this, is Weavers. So Weaver Quartz was announced. Let me slide that up. Let me pause this real quick. There we go. So Weaver Quartz was announced. This, to me at least, was a big surprise. Now, when you looked on their website here, there was an empty spot. When they put Wadrun in, they had it at a blank spot. Now, I didn't necessarily put a whole lot of thought into saying that blank spot meant we were going to get another faction this year. A few reasons. One, they've kind of talked about how, hey, we're on the pace of a faction a year. That way, by the end of the faction, or the end of the year, or one full calendar year, maybe is another way to put it, you have most of your stuff, or you have a filled out army that you can play. We still get some new units. Yeah, 100 Kingdom was one of the first ones. They got the Archangel not too long ago. They got a couple other units not too long ago. So you'll still get new stuff, but you'll be a fleshed out faction, so you can actually go out and play them and feel that you can compete and have fun with it, because you have quite a bit. Take Sorcerer Kings, for instance. We're getting Water and Earth coming up at some point. We don't know exactly when, but hey, they're only a year or so out, or by that point, maybe a little bit over a year. Hey, so within 18 months, you have a fully fleshed out faction kind of idea. Within probably 6 to 7 months, you have plenty to go with. Following year later, now you have tons of options. We're seeing the same thing for Euroni, that, hey, by another month or so, they're going to have a good amount of options. You have a good feel of an army. And then probably some point next year, we'll get some more units and kind of fill it out a little bit extra. So I didn't necessarily think, I thought this might have just been easier to code in to leave a blank spot. But they ended up giving us Weaver Quartz. So they announced this at this point a couple weeks back. They haven't given us too much other than a little bit of the history related to them. So things we know currently, we know July 10th is the info dump for them, because that's the next happy hour that they're doing. So it's all going to be Weaver Quartz. I have heard or seen, originally July was supposed to be Dweg. Apparently, that's not going to be Dweg. I don't think they put this in as an instead. Apparently some of the things that's talked about in one of the discords is the fact that there was some production issues. So they don't have. They wanted to do the Dweg with some of those new Dweg kits that they showed us, but apparently, for one reason or another, those kits aren't ready. I don't know if they're not ready because they need more sculpting. Don't know if they're not ready because of production issues. It's probably more production. And again, part of it's only what we hear, but essentially they're not ready to go. So instead, we're going to hear all about Weaver Quartz. Now, they're supposed to be a September release, and we'll see them throughout the holidays, but they'll get their preview model at Gen Con. Much like they do for the other factions, usually there's a limited edition style preview model, a character model that comes out early. They'll get the same thing, but you're looking at September through Christmas, probably to get, much like you have like for Yoni right now, to get enough of an army that you feel you can make a variety of lists. All right, so who are they? They are essentially the other half, for right now, of what we know, of the Spires. They're far to the west of the 100 Kingdoms. They call themselves the Faerun. They put it right there. So you're thinking fairies, fey creatures, that sort of thing. More fey, I guess, necessarily, but that sort of concept. Elemental spirits or not really even spirits. They're physical manifestations and physical beings. But whereas you have spires who do biomancy, essentially they're sculpting. They are more of life binding, so they're more of attuning themselves to the nature. So maybe you attune yourself to the trees and the land and all those sort of aspects, taking on aspects of yourself and making you who you are now. So I said that there's 4 main aspects for them: seasonal, as it says, spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And it says, yeah, they're capable of binding the life force of 2 beings together. They bond with the land and sought to heal it. And it mentions how, hey, you might have the eyes like a doe, hair of thorns and roses, cloven hooves, and all of that. So you're looking at fae, for all intents and purposes. What other sorts of things they get? I do think they will get nature spirits, maybe fairies, that sort of stuff as well, because you're looking at this very, or Spriggan sort of thing. So, and the idea is that they have is it a leader or, there it is, yeah. The voice, it was their undisputed spiritual that led them from the spire. So essentially they split. The spires went to go essentially craft. These ones went instead to essentially bind, and more of symbiotic relationship, really. So they have now split. Or at some point in the past, they split, and now we're actually getting them into the game. So what we know of their playstyle, there's a little bit that we know. They talk about how they're elusive range skirmishers, but specifically they call out that's a little bit different than normal. Their goal isn't necessarily to hurt you with that ranged. There's a brief random pause there for a sneeze, so it was giving me a little issues pausing it. But they're not going to actually try to do tons of damage you with that range. They're going to try to put, for better intents and purposes, status effects on you. Whether or not that's entirely negatives on you, or pluses, or negatives on your opponent, or pluses for you. They talk about how, statuses to enemy regiments, while faster moving melee allies close in to exploit their foes' misfortune and complete the combo. It does mostly sound like negatives, but I could put a negative onto you. That's technically a buff for me. So, we could be looking at things similar to like Desolation drones, where I'm removing an armor. So your defense is now worse. Or we could be looking at, hey, when you get this, whatever the name of the status is, onto you, maybe I'm easier to charge. Maybe that status gives me a plus on the charge because it's some sort of pheromones. So I essentially can go at you faster or something like that. So exactly what it's going to be, we don't know. Is that they've specifically called out that, hey, they're going to have a lot of ranged, but it's probably not going to do tons of damage. Or at least that's not the intention. And like I said, they have obviously their different faction rules, supremacies, and spells. We don't know any of those things yet. We will know in a few weeks. At this point, about 3 some weeks from now. That's what they tell you. They say, hey, they're cool looking models. It is neat looking. I'm not entirely sure. I want to see more of their stuff before I really decide on look, whether I like it or not. From what I've seen, the usually Spriggan type stuff isn't always necessarily my sort of thing. But depending on what they do, Conquest has a very unique look. Even when they do what you might think is a little bit more classic, they usually put enough of a twist on it to make it interesting. When you think of, say, their orcs, so we think of Wadrun, they didn't do the classic GW sort of orc, the sort of hulking brute look. They did a much more overall, essentially a guy who lifts for all intents and purposes. When you look like a GW orc, they're almost more ape-like. They usually have a little bit more of a just upper body, not so much the lower body parts and things like that. Where here you see it a bit different. And hey, guess what? It's all dinosaurs as well with it. So I'm reserving all judgment until we see more. Hopefully on July 10th, we're going to see a couple boxes. And I especially am curious to see, I don't know if they'll show us any monsters. Curious to see what some of them are supposed to end up being. So what do I expect? Now, this is purely speculation. I don't know for sure. No, I might work. I might have the discount code from Conquest, and I do a bunch of Conquest related content, but they don't tell me anything ahead of time. So what I expect. So it said it's skirmish shooting with, I would assume, fast moving close combat. That's essentially what they said. You're putting negatives on your opponent. You're not really damaging them with those sort of things. So what's that going to mean? I think the obvious parallels of Sorcerer Kings are there. So Sorcerer Kings, we essentially have 4 elements. Here now you're having 4 seasons for all intents and purposes. So I think you're probably going to see a bit much like we see in Sorcerer Kings, where if you're within a particular element, season, whatever that is, it works better together, especially with the redo they did for Sorcerer Kings. Fire goes very nicely with fire. Okay, hey, you want to start branching out? Ooh, branching out becomes a little bit tough. If you start mixing it together, maybe they don't actually work well. And I could see it in this, where it's almost like they're singing to nature, that kind of thing of, and the voices are in harmony. So, it could even be, summer and spring harmonize well together, whereas summer and winter are opposed to each other. So I could see something like that. I could see, or I'm interested, and maybe some of this is, I don't know, either wish listing or just cool thoughts. I think it would be interesting for them to do. Paired units. So we know if the goal is their range units are going to debuff you or buff your own units, do something good that's going to make you want to charge with them. I could see units pairing very well. So we think of, say, Sorcerer Kings, for instance. Hey, you're a fire unit. I now get, you attack them. Flamecasters do this. I hit you. I've done some damage with my flame. Hey, now it inflames you, and that helps the rest of my fire-based stuff. I could definitely see where you have some particular ranged unit that is directly applying a negative, but if a very specific unit is the one that capitalizes on it, they get a bigger. So say, for instance, some of the Sorcerer King spells used to do this. I don't know if any of them do it right now because I don't know them off the top of my head anymore since they changed it all. But I could say, okay, you have a range unit. It's a -1 to your defense. But if it's used by this other unit, it's a -1 defense and evade. So, sort of that symbiotic relationship. I could even see, depending on the season, where maybe that's the bonus. If they match the correct season, then you are getting this enhanced effect. So that's really telling you, it's not forcing the list building to you, but it is pushing that idea of these synergies of how they work together. And it's giving you something we honestly really haven't seen to that level. We've seen it to an extent. You see the same thing in 100 Kingdoms, where, depending on what dynasty or dynastic alliance piece, you have main benefit, lesser benefit, or feudal. Okay, you kind of get the other benefit. So I could see them really trying to push that. I think that would be a very interesting way for them to do it. Obviously, we're going to see Fae. I'm hoping, honestly, for Big Old Tree Monster. That I think would be neat, even if I don't do much with these guys. And who knows? We'll see. But even if I don't do much, if they get a really cool looking tree monster, I would absolutely paint that thing. I think this is going to be great if you are, say, this is a rank and flanks game. So thinking of the rank and flanks things, if you're a Wood Elf player from like Old World or any bit of fantasy, that's what you're looking at. That's probably for the moment, at least of what we know, the closest comparable to this. So I'm expecting to see those sort of things. I'm expecting to see, like I said, Spriggans. I'm looking to see. What I don't know is where they're pulling all the thoughts from. So I don't know, like for winter, exactly what they're going to be tapping into. Oddly enough, as I talk about this, what it reminds me of is Secret of Mana, because I played that not too long ago again. I play that like every 5 years. I usually pick that back up. But in there, you go to one spot where there's 4 seasons. So I'm just thinking, much like that, where depending on the season you're in, you get buffs and bonuses or minuses and all. I could see maybe a winter effect. Winter spells maybe slow your opponents down, create more hindering type terrain. Maybe they throw out a hindering type terrain. I could see summer or spring quickening your own troops, that sort of stuff. So I'm curious to see what they do with that. Um, listen, I would love to see magic as a buffer and unit abilities as a debuffer. So if they're talking about, hey, your units are going to debuff them, then maybe the magic is good for you, not so much damaging to the opponent. Depends on how much they want to really lean into this. They have essentially said, well, we're not leaning the shooting into damage. So they're going to do with the magic. As they've redone magic as we've gone along, it's been less and less, I would say, the damaging effects of magic. It's not that you don't have attack spells, but compared to the past, in a lot of ways, you don't necessarily see that to the level, I think, anymore. So I would like to see it to be just a lot of buff-based things. And again, they could play with a lot of cool of, if it matches the correct season, you get certain buffs. And if it matches the exact season, you get even stronger. Sort of a waxing and waning sort of idea. But I don't do rules. I'm gonna wait like everyone else and find out what they say. Um, Faction rule. Well, obviously we're gonna have elemental leaders. Faction rule, like I said, maybe paired units. So when you take one unit, you maybe so like right now. Oh, Sorcerer Kings, you can take an extra Roger Kerr type unit or Genora Disciples or whatever. Oh, maybe for these guys, you have your 2 mainstay, but when you take blank mainstay, you get an extra access outside of the normal 4 for this other particular unit. I could see something like that. That allows them to kind of break the 4 with 2 restricted options. You just don't allow the extras on maybe the restricted if that's what their concern is. But maybe taking this mainstay lets me take a freebie other mainstay that is the paired unit for it, kind of thing. Other faction rules, like I said, I would really be interested to see how they're going to play out this, seasonality. I do foresee that maybe certain seasons play better together and certain seasons play much worse together. I think that leads to interesting list building. I think you want to always be careful with this sort of thing of restricting what players can do, but give them the options. So there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, if you do this, you're going to be a little suboptimal, but you're more than welcome to do that. I think that's of interest, and that always interests me. It's true in a lot of these things. Like I said, you can't take, Theus and order or orders together. Okay, that's fine. Do this. Maybe the diametrically opposed don't really go together. So we'll know some more information in July. Once we know more, I will record something about them. So very interested to see exactly what we get for them. Would I play them? I don't know. I had to see more of it. I had to see rules, and especially I got to see models, because if I got to paint a bunch of them, and you can't see it, but there's a desk here with models over there, some different ones. My Conquest I'm not getting rid of, but some other stuff, like some of my 40k Necrons, I'm trying to sell those because I'm just not enjoying it, but that'll be in a different video, talking about all that kind of stuff. All right, so other things, other big misses that we have had. Timestamp that real fast. One of the other big ones, and I don't have a cool picture pulled up for this, so I'll just go to this for a moment. A new edition of Heresy. So they announced it not too long ago. I, for one, was surprised. I was not expecting a brand new edition of Heresy. We know they ended up putting out early because GW had to, because essentially some stuff got leaked. Things were found out. So then they said, yeah, hey, here's new Heresy for you. I do want to record with the other guys. I know their schedules have just been tough. And I'll be honest also, I haven't tried in a little bit. I usually record at random times myself. I do want to get at least one of the others back, and hopefully both of they can do it. I know right now their schedules are almost entirely opposite one another, especially maybe as we get into the summer or once we have good information about this to record some more stuff about it. But just for base initial thoughts, Did Heresy need a new edition? No. I'm 100% in the camp that it did not need it. I would have been fine with, okay, it's GW, so they probably would have redone books, but I would have been fine if rather than just FAQing things, FAQs are all nice and good, but if you're going to put out a big hardcover book and then you're going to keep altering the book, then my book doesn't do me much good. I still technically need the book to be able to play the game, but then I need the book and some pages and some other documents and all these things put together to actually be able to play. I don't like that. I don't think anyone necessarily likes that, but that really sours to me. And GW is very, very big on doing this. I understand why. Don't get me wrong. The books are beautiful, tons of lore, great pictures. It is a spectacle to be had. But if I'm going to play, I don't want to have to bring a giant stack of books, personally. Again, to the point, I getting older now. My back gives me problems. I can't bend forward for a full day to play games. Sometimes that will bother me, so I'd like to sit a little bit more now, let alone carrying all these different books and having to thumb through them. It's just a hassle. That's me. I don't know, maybe giant books is a young man's game. But what I would have been fine with is if they did a revised 2.0. If they said, hey, here's all these FAQ things, here's the stuff you guys have been waiting on that we haven't talked about, because there's been some problems that they just haven't addressed in a year plus. Whether those were problems because they're legitimate rules issues, or whether or not it's a problem because it's too much. Contemptors, or more importantly, Leviathans, are just overtuned. In 2.0, they're overtuned. There's a reason why no one runs Fury of the Ancients. Or if you're going to run it, we're going to have that discussion first, and I'm going to bring a list that could contend with it. Because otherwise, if I just bring my fun, fluffy list of a variety of mixed units to handle all the different types of problems I might get, and you bring a good Furies of the Ancients list, I'm probably doing really, really bad. So that's an issue. There was issues in 2.0. I don't want to sit here and say 2.0 was perfect anyway. It absolutely wasn't. No game truly is. But yes, there was absolute problems. I would have been fine with a cleanup. They chose not to do that. That's not too surprising for GW. Again, I wasn't expecting it yet, but I knew it would happen at some point. I guess the big thing is first and second edition were so far apart in terms of when it happened. I thought we'd have a few more years. I wasn't sure exactly how long, but I thought they might do a cleanup and then try to do one later. But no, they decided to do a brand new edition. Now, I'm also going to say, I'm not one of those people who's going to sit there and say, burn it all to the ground. It's terrible that they're doing this. And, oh, all of this is bad, because I see that around. If you look at the different groups, you look on the different Facebooks for this, Reddit, all that kind of stuff, you'll get a mixture of people who are excited, and you'll get a mixture of people who are saying, oh, well, there goes all the money. I'm never going to buy GW again. And we're all going to play second edition, or they're back to playing first edition, or all that kind of stuff. People who did Ninth Age sort of thing when you talk about fantasy, when that got destroyed. Although that's a little bit different because that was removed entirely. Does it need it? No. Am I happy with it? For everything I've seen so far, yes. Now, having said that, we don't know everything. I know no additional information than anyone else. I look at the same sort of leaks and official forms and all that everyone else sees. Rather than go into great depth of that right now, again, we don't necessarily know enough to talk about that super in depth. I'll just highlight maybe a few pieces. Saturnian Terminators, I think, look really cool. They're not my favorite type. I know a lot of people were waiting for these things, but I do think they're neat. Mark II armor, I personally prefer the Mark III, but that's me, just the what I like. So I prefer 3 to 4 by far. So, but hey, the new armor, if that's what you're waiting on, it looks great. The new Dreadnought, I think he actually looks really neat, and he's a massive boy. They've shown the new box. I'll probably at some point I'll pick up that new box once it comes out. I have other projects I'm trying to work on, but once those are done, I do want to get back into that. Haven't played Heresy in a little bit. That's just me personally. I just haven't had the time. My weekends sometimes get full, and that's when most of that is. Heresy we play casually, but it's usually more event based, and just sometimes my week. Oh, it's a Saturday. Oh, my Saturday's taken up. Can't get there. And I will admit, hey, now that new edition's coming out, I either would play just weird stuff, paint stuff, or wait, because I don't want to get too invested in things. Although a lot of the new stuff that we've seen, at least, is brand new things. I know like the tarantula turrets and all that kind of stuff are coming out. So maybe picking up some of those and working on that, things that we'll get to. By looks of things, we know one of the main concerns people had was, are they just going to simplify the game? Are they going to 10th ed this or 9th ed this or AOS it, where you remove the complexity? From everything I've seen, no. If anything, complexity has gone up closer to Rogue Trader first, second edition type stuff, where now you're not just a leadership stat, you know, have your old stats. If someone doesn't know, way back when, you essentially had an intelligence type stat. You have those sort of things again. We know there's still reaction-based things, but hey, we know you applied different things. It's not just pinning anymore. Oh, you applied different statuses that perform or do different things to people. They have eased up on certain aspects. I don't necessarily think that's problematic, but we have to see. We know like heavy now, you get bonuses when you don't move. It's not that you're gonna like be snap shooting, hitting only on 6s sort of thing. At least everything I've seen so far, it looks more like you get a plus. Like heavy bolters are naturally 3 shots. Hey, you don't move, you get that extra shot. You're getting things for not interacting or for not moving and all, for staying still. Instant death is apparently entirely gone, at least by the wording. I haven't seen it for sure, but the way they talk about how a las cannon being a 2 damage weapon, because they've added damage values to weapons. Weapons are no longer a damage point. So you didn't necessarily, for a normal army, you're not playing knights, you're not playing, I guess maybe custodes kind of stuff. You're playing normal armies, Space Marine type armies, or even, probably even technically Mechanicum, or even Solar Auxilia type things, that you didn't need a multi-damage weapon in general, because instant death took the multi-damage. If I hit you with a las cannon, most of you were getting smoked if you failed your invul save, because it was high enough that it just took out your wounds. So essentially, it was the multi-damage weapon. What they've done now for las cannons, they're damage too. They still have that high strength, but they mentioned, hey, this can take out normal Terminators, but can't take out Saturnan Terminators. Okay. Well, if that's the case, does that mean that instant death is no longer on? At least by their wording. They talk about like, hey, it can take them out now. The regular Terminators. Well, it could before because of instant death. So if you're specifically calling it out, instant death must be gone. We know Melta weapons, rightly so, I guess, but Melta weapons will absolutely wreck vehicles. They're like 6 damage weapons when you're close enough to vehicles and stuff like that. I know my Death Guard have a 10-pack of multi-Melta guys. I don't know what the rest of this edition is going to look like, but I think those guys are going to be in a lot of my lists because vehicles got more hull points in general. You went up, they showed a Predator went up by like 2. Penning does hull points, glancing, but it doesn't do any other effects. You can't get that lucky 6 and blow up. Or if you're doing like a las weapon or something like that, las cannon, you can't get that lucky result. And hey, I hit you once, boom, you're gone. So pen doesn't do other effects other than hull points, but you do have multi-damage weapons. And if I get close with Melta Gun, I still get through, but you're just going to be toast probably anyway. You do get saves against that though. So if you have like an invul or cover or however that's going to work, but glances are the one that put the statuses on you. They're the ones that make you shoot worse or all this sort of effects. But they don't naturally do any damage unless you try to put the same status on someone that's already on them. And you can't save a glance. So if I'm just glancing you, I can't glance you to death like we used to do in the previous edition. I can't do glances to actually destroy your tank. But I can do them to, I guess if you do enough of the glances, you could start stacking those effects. But it's much tougher to do. But I'll actually put statuses on you and cause you problems. So vehicles seem to be a bit better balanced. Also, the multi-damage helps when you're talking about knights and titans and big things like that, or even custodes, where they're tough enough you couldn't double them out. Okay, well now I can put the extra damage on them. Now that it evens the playing field a little bit more. They showed some stuff about knights and titans, and that titans now have damage values in different areas. So what you do to the head is different than the body, different than the weapons and all of that. What I will say, without having to go into every little bit of revealed information or leaked information and all of that we see all over the place, I'm encouraged by the fact that it looks like they've kept complexity without either tuning it too much where it becomes a chore, or hey, now everything's just too simple. One thing that I'm still not sure how I feel about, I had to read more of it and kind of really, once we see all the rules put together, is list building. I know that's changed now. It's like your characters bring certain things rather than a force org. I don't know how I feel about that. Opening up what you can play is a very nice idea, and I think it works better in Heresy than it does in 40K. It's 40K, you can play 40K casually, of course. Play for fun. You can play on the ground using soda cans as drop pods. We've all done that. But in general, it is a more competitive game. Where Heresy is much more the historical type game. We're playing for scenario or a scenic view. We're playing to do the story. So even though I have more options, it's much less likely that my goal is just, hey, this is the absolute best top tier things. And now I can top tier better than I used to. Let me crush you. At least in the Heresy communities where I am, you're going to run out of people to play against. And if you're doing an event, we submit lists usually ahead of time. Oh, no, your list is like crazed. No, go redo that. So we self-police more because we're not playing for anything other than fun. And in general, a lot of the guys, same thing I saw in some of the Discord, some people saying that they only got to play second a few times because they do a lot more hobbying or just busier in life. They don't get to it as much. They only get out for those couple game day sort of things that they do, their local group. That's when I did a lot of my Heresy, was when different events. I just haven't been to some of the events lately, so I haven't been able to play as much lately. I've been a little bit busy to get out to stores. We've been doing Arkham Horror, the card game as well. So that eats, a night about every other week or almost that. So I just lose some of the days I used to have. I'm very cautiously optimistic. I like the things I've seen so far. I want to see full rules, though. I don't have that worry that I have had sometimes with GW releases. It does look more fun to me than Ved that I've been having. It looks more fun to me than Age of Sigmar, which I enjoy as well. But I want to see what they do with it all overall. And I will say, though, like a few other people have said, I'm not looking forward to needing like 2 books to do this. That I'm tired of. Maybe they'll do some sort of app. They do it for 40K and Sigmar. Throw that in there as well. Let me pay a small subscription if need be to have everything put together until maybe some other community stuff comes out. But give me a way that I don't have to carry these big books around with me. Where, oh, you want this, and I'm pouring through to do it. I'm sure New Recruit will have a list builder for it before long, so I can nicely build some lists and all. But make it convenient, GW. Maybe you won't. But the more convenient, if you really want to get new people into the game. And if the goal of this, my thought is with Heresy, obviously in the games, they want more people in. Really want people in, don't have the sort of stop sign of spend like $120 on books. And then you may get some models and all of that. Find a way to let me play if all I do is pick up models, and then I can grab books at my leisure or something like that. That's what I love about Conquest or some other games, because you can find the rules. You give me the pieces I need to play, and then you let me buy your plastics. W is still in the frame mind of buy some books and then buy plastic. Personally, if I'm having to buy a bunch of books, that is less models. So we'll see. Still waiting cautiously to see what's going to happen with all that. The other thing I will mention is, for any of this, let me know in the comments below your thoughts. Are you looking forward to Weavers, the new Heresy, whatever you're looking at? Have you tried Blueprints? Last thing I'm going to bring up is more board game related, and that's about CMON. This was the other news I wanted to discuss. And I'm going to put in this rather than a separate video because why not? I don't want to put out like tons of tiny videos. I will timestamp all this, but that's just not me. Maybe I should do that, but I'm not doing that today at least. So, CMON, cool mini or not, for anyone who doesn't know, they do essentially tons and tons of Kickstarter stuff. And if we take a look at their catalog, some of their best known things. So Zombicide is huge. They've redone it many times. Hey, you can notice they did Marvel Zombies. They did Deceased. So DC Zombies and all of that. They have Marvel United, which Marvel United is actually a lot of fun. I do enjoy that. But again, Kickstarter. So They did it through different levels. We can actually probably see a little bit of the product line. Yeah. But they show you some of the expansions for this, and they've done other ones. But there was others also put out as well. There's special Kickstarter edition stuff. They're very bigly, they're very well known for that. That they get a lot of licenses, like Army of the Dead is a license for them. Or some of the other licenses they show it. Oh, Stranger Things one, Masters of the Universe, Bloodborne, Blood Rage. They have the God of War card game, but they're actually doing a board game as well. So they do a lot of licensed materials. They are known for having a lot of Kickstarters. They're known for having items locked to Kickstarter exclusive. So I know at least originally for Marvel United. Marvel United came out in different waves. And what they did for one of them, oh, there's all this Kickstarter exclusive stuff. Hey, the next time we did a Kickstarter, you missed any of that exclusives, you can get it now in this Kickstarter instead. So you can go back and get some of the old ones. But other stuff just is gone then. Once it's kind of done, it's done. The other thing CMON is known for is having outstanding Kickstarters. At least of a few months back, I don't know all of this for the current moment, but someone posted this talking about it, is about 6 months back they had 17 projects that were outstanding. I think most of these are still outstanding. There might be one or two that aren't, but most of it is. Like I said, I actually checked. I know the God of War, the board game, not out yet. People are looking for updates about. They have Song of Ice and Fire. There's also doing the tactics, sort of this, I'll say skirmish, although Ice and Fire is kind of essentially skirmish anyway. But they have that coming up. But they have all these different ones. The new Cthulhu, Death May Die. At the time, that was actor crowdfunding, but obviously now it's been funded and all. But they have a lot that is just kind of sitting there, and they're working on. And a few different things happened. One, when it came time to talk about, let me close that up for a second. When it came time to talk about essentially their profit loss statements, when it came time to talk about how the business was going, they didn't reveal any of that. It actually got them delisted in certain spots for at least a bit. I don't know if they've released it. I don't believe so, but I don't know if they got themselves listed again. I knew they got themselves listed on the Stockholm NASDAQ. So they are listed. No, sorry, that's not them. My apologies. That's Asmodee who got listed there. My apologies. But what the belief is that CMON has done is that they run into the same issue that we had with Steamforged Games, although not to the same extent, is that to cover costs now, the next Kickstarter is covering the back. So ideally what Kickstarter should do for, say, a board game, say Marvel United, you bring in the money, that money gets your Marvel United out into people's hands, and it gives me some stock and product to sell. So it gets it done, and then it keeps me to be able to then keep the wheels turning on this. What you don't want is hey, to pay Marvel United, I needed the new Marvel Zombies to cover the cost of United because I'm backlogged on things. The previous thing paying for a future thing and so on. Or the current thing paying for a past item. That's what you want to avoid happening. That, as far as we can tell, is what happened with Steamforged Games. They had the issue of, hey, the Darkest Dungeon did really well, but they needed some of that to cover the Rainbow Six Siege, and then some of that to cover the various other properties, Monster Apocalypse, because they had Mompoc from Privateer Press. And essentially, no one's heard from that company in like a year plus. It's probably just done. We know one of the offices essentially liquidated, although that was the concept office, the one that comes up with new ideas. The other one we haven't heard, but personally, no, I don't think that stuff's ever coming out. If I get it, great, but I don't think so. And the concern is CMON going down a route of money issues. Now, we know they've had some problems. We know they have some problems because they've kind of told us they're not releasing their financials. We know that COVID hit them hard. It hit the whole board game industry hard. We know tariffs are currently, depending on timing of this and what's going to happen in the world, at least a lingering potential issue, whether or not they're affecting anything right this moment or that they could, all of that. And there's other problems ahead as well. I'm not going to go into all the details. But so what they ended up doing, and they talked about they were going to sell some things, and they sold Zombicide. They sold Zombicide to Asmodee. Now, we knew they were selling it. There had been some talk about that. but it was a little, honestly, both surprising and not. Z Garcia, actually, from Dice Tower, said a while ago, if they ever sell Zombicide, the company's gone. I don't necessarily think that's true. I do think to an extent they're selling it. I don't necessarily, it could be to keep themselves afloat, realistically. I'm not sure that's the case. And for all I know, tomorrow they go bankrupt and we find out otherwise. But they wouldn't bother doing it then. You're not selling a Zombicide because you're worried about bankruptcy. In terms of, like, you could sell it afterwards. You're selling Zombicide because you're trying to keep yourself going in a useful way. And I think trying to deliver on some of these Kickstarters. I think to a good extent, maybe. I don't think they have any active ones. Actually, yeah. I just looked it up on their website. They've had 59 projects, raised over $110 million with 700,000 backers. So they showed the archive, the ones that are done. Late pledge is open for the new Massive Darkness. But at least according to this, visit our latest crowdfunding campaign. Yeah, okay. Pledge managers closed. They go to Cthulhu Death May Die and all. So they don't currently have any. And I think they probably don't want to start any until they deliver on some of these for a few reasons. One, obviously that's a problem. But two, they've been earning less money in general as of late, at least on the last few Kickstarters, because they haven't delivered on 17. Do I really want to put in for another one? Are they going to get to me? So, okay, maybe you sell Zombicide to catch up and be able to hopefully deliver a bunch of stuff. If they've taken Zombicide as far as I think they can go, holding on to it isn't going to do them any good. And they only sold Zombicide. They didn't sell the Marvel version or the DC version. So maybe in their minds, hey, that's the way we want to expand. That's what we kickstarted and we're ready to go with. You guys have this and just go ahead and do something with it. You're already distributing it for us anyway. So I think it's probably a good move for CMON. It will give them some much needed cash to at least an extent. We don't know what else might be in this deal. I'm sure there's money, but there might be some other useful things. There might be, some more in terms of distribution deals as well, stuff that helps them out. Hopefully it helps them catch up on all those Kickstarters they don't have done. I will say I was a little bit surprised that it was Asmodee who bought them. For anyone who doesn't know, Asmodee was owned by the Embracer Group, and a little bit over a year ago, Embracer Group had essentially, so what Asmodee was doing for quite a while is they were trying to buy up different board game type companies. So they spent a bunch of money over quite a few years. Even then themselves were bought up by someone else to make it the Asmodee line. But essentially, they were bought and sold internationally, trying to get all these other publishers. Embracer Group bought them as well. And Embracer Group was doing that as well as other media. So they're also buying video game developers, all this sort of stuff. And the thing is, they expected to get money from society investors. There was, I don't remember the name of the company, but essentially they're expecting that. So they bought up a bunch of stuff. They spent a lot of money expecting this income. And the income never happened. That investment didn't occur. So then they were saddled with the better part of about $1 billion in debt. Probably a little over, actually. So what they did is they split essentially these portions into 3 pieces. And they saddled, originally, Asmodee with about $900 million of that debt that they had. Now, that was just about a year ago. They have done a little bit with that through some other sales. They did, Embracer Group did invest $400 million into Asmodee from some other sales they did, and they took about $300 million of that for the outstanding debt. So you're looking at about $430 million left over. The current numbers seem to be, and $100 million of that was essentially for the company. So obviously they're using that money to do this. They are probably buying up other things as well. Asmodee, like I said, they did just get themselves listed not too long ago on the Stockholm NASDAQ index, or stock market, I should say, not index. My apologies. Essentially, it looked really bad. It definitely looks better for them. When you have that kind of debt, your goal then is to restructure, get new investors, and be able to, if you have big payments coming up, something new that delays that payment. So, some new thing now pays off the old thing, and then you worry about the new thing later. But they must be going in the right direction if they actually wanted to do this. So I am a little bit surprised by that. I guess Asmodee is in better shape than they looked. Asmodee, for anyone who doesn't know, it's essentially the biggest board game publisher in the world. They have multiple arms. They're the ones who own FFG and AMG and a bunch of other ones. They bought up all kinds of bits. And I guess at least Embracer did do something for them, although they didn't have to saddle them with $1 billion in debt. They helped them out a bit, but they kind of spun it to them. Essentially, Embracer had a bunch of problems, and then they made it Asmodee's problem. What's that mean for Zombicide and all? Don't really know. Like I said, they were already essentially distributing it. The hope, I don't know where they want to take it because lots have already been done. They've already worked on a whole lot. CMON. So I guess we'll have to see exactly what do they do with it from here. And does this sale give them enough to actually be able to finish some of these Kickstarters? Like I said, I'm sure they have some ideas of new ones they'd love to do, but I think they have to pay off a few first or finish a few to kind of get back the general good feeling of the public. I think CMON right now leaves a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths because they got a lot of money outstanding, a lot of projects outstanding, and they're kind of wholesaling at least a few things. So what's going to happen? Who knows? Obviously, their press release says everything's great and wonderful. All right, well, that is various bits of news that I wanted to discuss. Essentially, those are all separate topics I would have made videos about over the last few weeks. Rather than making a whole bunch of them, I just made one. So let me know in comments below. Are you looking forward to any of these things? What have you been doing? Any other big news that has been happening? I think this is some of the biggest. I would like to actually maybe just do some more gaming news from here and there because it's a little more general and there is some big stuff that happens. Or things that I'm working on otherwise, I have a battle report for Conquest I'm doing. I have a general gaming video that I'm maybe recording today or tomorrow. It's a little bit later in the day than I'd like. If not, recording that maybe tomorrow. And then I have some other Conquest content that I have put together. I just have to actually sit down and record it, but I am trying to get back to all of that. Luckily, for the next little bit, my time's a little bit better, unless I just play a whole bunch more blueprints. But no, I'm going to try to get back to all of this. All right, let me know, as always, anything that you would like to see, hear, talk about, or anything like that. And like I said, once Heresy comes out, we're going to talk about it. We just want to wait until we actually have the information in our hands, because otherwise it's just speculating. So we could do that as well. All right, well, on behalf of everyone at the show, then, has a good hobby. It's a great gaming.